Hello, everyone. Welcome. Is that Goaty? Hi, Cripsis. Hi, Ryan. Hello, Cypherin. Hi, Strazer. I see Owl Doll Arts. Hi, Streamnillo. Hello. Welcome. Hi, T. Hello. Ellie is here too. I also see my lovely people who are gonna be on this conversation in chat. Finn, Thor, D, Jen. Hi, Al. Oh my God, hello. Babe with the hello. Welcome. King of APOC is here as well. Oh my gosh, 3D Code Warrior, welcome. It's so nice to see you all today. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Streamer Strategies. It is so wonderful to see you. Hard to type. Mog is manning the keyboard. You know what? I'm lucky today. Bobby is sitting in her chair versus sitting on my arm. So I lucked out. Finn did not. Hi, 16-Bitten. We do have a lineup. We do have an incredibly talented, amazing lineup that I can't say enough good things about today. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Streamer Strategies. This episode is called The Broadcaster and Me. We will be talking about boundaries and what that looks like in the streaming space, on the online space. You know, why sometimes maybe we might share certain information and not share other information. So we hope to elevate the streaming space by sharing our, things that we've learned as broadcasters and things maybe like, not necessarily mistakes that we've made, but maybe just like, all of our different life experiences and, what that, like how to better help others who might be dealing with the same kind of struggles. So let me bring my wonderful and amazingly talented guests on. Hi, everybody. I remembered to unmute the microphones this time. Hello. How y'all doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
Good.
Peachy.
Wonderful.
Peachy.
Good. I would love for you all to introduce yourselves. Oh, look, there's the cat. There's the cat. We always got to have a good cat cam. Oh my gosh.
Best streamer strategy session ever. Now with cat.
I know.
The
I'm just
keyboard
gonna
right
put the camera on Bobby. That's it. Y'all don't even need me. Just Bobby.
I mean, I have 3 cats. The odds are I should have at least one here, and I don't.
See, I'm surprised you don't have 3 cat cams set up right now, one for
I
each,
know.
I have a Jolteon plushie in the other room. Does that count?
That
Yeah.
counts. That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
yes.
I love it. So, yeah, you know what? I will say, let's start with General Andrews, then we'll go to D, then Thor, then Finn. And I would love for y'all to introduce yourselves and, tell the chat who you are if they don't know who you are.
Well, hopefully y'all heard my name is General Andrews, and that is true. So if you don't know who I am, though, otherwise, I do a lot of different things on Twitch in the retro sphere and things retro adjacent as well. A lot of things, though, that I like to focus on that are outside of the games themselves are the connections that we make with each other. And I do that in the idea of diving into nostalgia and then taking that element and having shared experiences. Now that kind of ranges as time goes on. So you've seen me potentially do a lot of co-op action in the past, maybe some multiplayer things as well. But most importantly, how do I smack a microphone and keep talking? How do I continue to, connect with folks out there, in chat that is this interesting connection that you get to have that's so different than any other medium. I was actually listening to a quote by David Bowie the other day, may he rest in peace, that he had said that the internet is creating a completely unfathomable medium that we will not be able to understand 10 to 20 years from now. This interview happened about 22 years ago.
Wow.
And he was saying how artists and folks who create entertainment are going to have a completely different understanding of what's going to happen in front of them, and there's no way to really project what you're going to be able to do with this. So with that being said, this form of a medium that we're able to actually have real live conversations. I remember starting back out on Twitch in 2015, and there would be such delay. You'd be waiting 1, 2, 3 minutes, and that wasn't people putting slow mode or anything. That was just normal latency. And it was just like, you're having a conversation and then you're 3 minutes behind and whatnot. And that was just such a complete, mind breaking thing. So I think it's really important that what I try and do is I just try to find so many different ways to make my content relatable. And that could be from altering different aspects of the stream itself, all the way down to how I talk and interview or connect with people through our conversations.
I love that. I love that. You get into some really deep and awesome conversations. Thank you so much for sharing that about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. D, tell everyone about yourself.
Oh my god, that's so much pressure after Jen's amazing intro. I'm like, I'm D. We talk about poop a lot. Hey.
Oh my
Little
God.
different. On a serious note, I'm D. Everyone's laughing because they know it's true. I'm D. I also focus a lot on retro and nostalgia, and my passion for storytelling in video games as a medium. I nerd out a lot about my obsessive collecting over the years, be it Japanese media about Final Fantasy or just retro collecting in general, and also do a lot of charity work. I use my platform to talk about why I'm a full-time content creator, which is because I am disabled. I may not look disabled, but I have an invisible disability, and we talk a lot about living with something like that, as well as how to use Twitch as a tool to educate and do good in the world, and do a lot. We've raised over $250,000 on my channel for charity, and work with a bunch of different organizations, and also I think give people a place to go where they don't have to feel shy about sharing if they're having a bad pain day. I always say it's supportive vibes only. In my neck of the woods, not, positive vibes only. We don't really do that. We keep it real. And then, yeah, we're also really comfortable talking about pee and poo. So it's a nice balance of comedy and keeping it real.
Oh my gosh. I love that. D, you do a lot of good here on the online space, and I know in your life, and thank you for all of that work, and thank you for making a space where people can feel accepted. It doesn't always have to be like a show they have to put on, right? Like, because I think that's what people are like concerned about when they're like positive vibes only. Like, it's not like a show. It's you can be who you are and you can still be authentic even if you're not having the best day. Thank you for that.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Thor, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much. And well, D, if I wasn't feeling self-conscious before, now I am. Now I have to follow up you and Andrews. Oh
yeah,
my
you two are
God.
going last next
Oh,
time. Man.
I know, right? That's what I'm saying. But hello there, everybody. My name is Thor Mingander, and I'm a full-time partnered content creator on this platform who focuses on playing video games with alternative controllers such as steering wheels, Donkey Kong bongos, DDR pads, and many others, all as a way to elevate the conversation about accessibility within gaming, making sure that games are accessible to everyone, and that it's not just, elitism or people bragging about what they can do, because gaming is something that should be for everyone. And we very much take that stance in our community by making sure we can have discussions among equality about mental health, neurodiversity, the LGBTQ plus community, and more. We want to create an interconnected community, not only within my community, but within others, and helping to elevate those who are not seen as equal to that state of equal, giving everyone a platform to speak and talk about their experiences and enjoy the company of others, all while doing absurd things like playing Elden Ring on a steering wheel.
I love that so much. I love all of the entertainment value you described. I loved everything that you're doing about creating an inclusive space. That is so cool. And you're just superstar. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me and letting me dip out of my comfort zone.
Oh, yeah, of course. Hi, Finn. Tell everyone about yourself.
Man. Last billing after all that. Okay. All right. So, hi. I'm Phenomenon. I am a co-host to cats like this guy right here, who always steal the show.
It's true.
Much like my friend D here, I also have a disability, this one being ADHD, and I try to advocate for people with that and neurodivergence in general. So we often have discussions, very open discussions about that. Mog is going to probably start typing messages in chat, just so you know. He's commandeered the keyboard. What are you doing, kitty? This is my vibe here. Like, just this chaotic vibe all the time. Thoughts broken, cats interrupting. I play mostly retro games, but I always tell people that those are just the backdrop. Like, they're really just how we connect with each other. They're the conversation piece. What's really important to me is that vibe that we're all hanging out in like the living room together playing games. Game goes, you know, unnoticed minutes at a time sometimes because we're talking about something. So that's really what I do. And I've done it successfully for many years on Twitch now. I hope that that continues.
I love the way that you state that. I've done it successfully for many years on Twitch because that's true, you have. And I really love that, you know, everybody here has also talked about how they're openly talking about things that identify who they are and opening the conversation up to everybody who shares their space with them. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. I love that you do that, Finn. And thank you for sharing your space with us and always working so hard in elevating the platform and elevating what you do here on Twitch. So, especially with something that I noticed all of you bring up is that you want to create a space where people feel comfortable being themselves, being safe, while also maybe describing things that are super personal to you, like whether you're dealing with invisible illness or you're dealing with, you know, whatever thing that you want to advocate for. Describe to me the boundaries you might set on information sharing on Twitch and how that impacts the things that you do while you're discussing sensitive topics like that. So, I don't know who wants to go first on that.
I can jump on
You
that.
want to jump? Okay, awesome. Please
It's
do.
very relevant to something I had to handle this week, actually.
Sure.
You know, I talk very openly about having an autoimmune disease and the difficulties of that, and doing a lot of education. I have lupus. There's no test to diagnose lupus. So a lot of people will come into my stream, hear me talk about my disease and piece together symptoms that I'll describe and think, oh, maybe I have this too. And it's really awesome. It's like a double-edged sword because I often want to encourage people to ask questions. I'm also a nurse. That's what I did full-time before streaming. So I love getting people to a conclusion or giving them that power to go to a doctor and say, yeah, I have X, Y, and Z. Can we investigate this? But the other side of that is people will often, you know, maybe think I have the answers to everything and definitively think, okay, that's definitely what this is. My doctor's wrong. And so it's a tough balance. And it's all about getting people to go down a line of thinking, but also having to constantly divert and regularly, like every other sentence. So I feel I have to reinforce, like, I'm not a physician and neither are you. So it's about trusting in professionals, but also knowing how to ask the right questions, but also advocating for yourself at the same time that not every doctor is going to be the right fit for you, and seeking second opinions and taking resources and whatnot. So something I always stress with people is documentation is your friend in every line of work, in everything you do in your life. So if you're having something weird going on with your body, yourself, whatnot, write it down, document it, take it to someone who knows. If it doesn't feel right, get another opinion. Don't just trust someone on the internet because they said something. And I think reinforcing that boundary so regularly is like, we can have this conversation, but it's a conversation. It's not the diagnosis. It's not the end all be all. And I think in fostering an environment where people can share their experiences so you have a reference point of potentials is really powerful, but knowing that everyone's experience is different and really reiterating that in every aspect of, I think, everything we go through personally, be it mental health, physical health, it's all personally anecdotal. It's not one size fits all with all things. So I think it's really cool to share, but also reinforce the boundary of like, this is my story, that's their story. We can relate on this level, but it's not going to one size fits all everyone.
Just to piggyback off that, I mean, in my community we have a lot of conversations around like neurodiversity, and because I have a disability, I have ADHD, and it's something where I talk a lot about my experiences personally to others, and a lot of time I'll have people come in and like, oh, so what should I do? And I have to remind them, I am not a physician. I'm like, you need to go talk to your general practitioner. And I'm very direct with it. And like, well, you seem to have a lot of experience. I'm like, this is what I've been through, and it's not going to match what anyone else has been through. And I can't give you news of a diagnosis. I can't give you the answers you're seeking. If you find anything in my story that sounds like something you've been through, you can take that information in, but you need to be able to talk to medical care that's going to be able to help you properly look through that and take the steps to properly diagnose you. You can't just go and say, oh, well, I'm experiencing the same thing as this person. It very well could be that you might have this thing, but it's not up for the streamer or you solely to figure that out. And I think as well is the other thing that a lot of people tend to take in too is with trauma dumping. Like sometimes they will have a streamer who's talking about the things they are going through, and they will take it as an invite to trauma dump themselves without consent. Usually when it comes down to streamers sharing information, it is expected that the streamer will set the tone and the guidelines for what they're talking about, and also know what kind of topics to steer clear of, or what topics maybe they want to dive more into, and also how to warn people that those topics are coming up. But when somebody comes in from outside of your community, or even from inside, or maybe has a parasocial relationship with you in that regard, and they think that they can share more, it creates a dangerous precedent of when are they going to stop sharing, and at what point is it appropriate or inappropriate for them to go further in what they're explaining. They have not asked the consent of the viewer, they have not asked the consent of the streamer. And that is also one of those things where I tell people, do not come into streams, do not trauma dump, because you are not the one setting the tone, the streamer is, and you don't know the boundaries of where to stop.
You don't know what could trigger somebody on screen as the streamer.
Yeah.
You don't know what could trigger somebody in chat. So, really good point. Finn and Jen, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah. Kind of similar to what Dee does. Like, I'm pretty open about the ADHD and the process that I went through to get diagnosed, and also the medications that I use. But when I was going through that process, one of the most frequent questions I was getting is, hey, what medicine are you trying right now? And I wouldn't tell anyone.
Right.
That wasn't information I was willing to give them, because I didn't want myself to be biased towards a particular outcome of using said treatments.
Right.
So I told everyone that, no, I'm not going to tell anybody what I'm using until well after it's been said and done, because I don't want that. And I don't want to also bias them as well,
Correct.
because they may be potentially seeking, solutions themselves. So now that, we're past that point, I am open about what I do take and what does work for me and what doesn't. But, once we had to cross that finish line first, and a lot of people were really curious how that was going along the way. And that was a boundary that I had to continually reinforce.
That totally makes sense. I get it. And I totally get why you wouldn't want to share that, because they were like, oh, well, if that worked for you, that would work for me. Just like what Dee was saying earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had to take the approach of generally I won't say what I'm taking, or like what my diet is like or whatnot. I'll talk about some things that I have to exclude, but I do typically have to have that boundary with people. And I'll say that, like that's line crossing for me. So I don't talk about it. And it's for the same reason, right? We don't want to seem like we're endorsing something, especially
Right.
when some
Right.
of these things have such severe side effects.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
That-
controlled substances, for example.
Right. Yeah.
That's the other thing I try to like really hold back from as well in stream, is when other people start talking about what they've taken and what they've done. I really try and pull back sometimes on that information. I was like, be careful the information you share, because you do not have all the information to know why this person is on this, why they've been prescribed this. And it's dangerous to just have somebody in your stream say, oh, well, you should talk to your doctor about this, because you don't know that person. You don't know who they are, what they have, what they're going through. And it's also dangerous for any non-medical physician to tell you that. They don't know. They like to think that because it works for them, it will work for other people because they've had success. And the truth is, that's just not how it works. It's dangerous to give out advice, especially in medical, especially in mental health stuff, when you don't know what you're talking about. And I tell people there's a difference between being an advocate and telling people, you know, hey, this is something that you should look into, like as in a go talk to your doctor about these things because I'm not here and I want to make sure that you are, you know, taking into account that these things are issues. And then there's a difference in telling them you should take this.
Jen, what do you have to add?
All right, so I'm fully able-bodied and all that kind of stuff, so I don't have that to relate on. But something that comes from my perspective that does cross boundaries a lot, which you would think that wouldn't be the case, is people come to me for a lot of fitness and health advice, and I do online personal training. But the problem is it's one of those things that people start to then similarly trauma dump their entire experiences when I'm like, I will answer broad general health questions because a lot of people actually don't know that, or there's misinformation out there, or someone was selling a product so they believed that person until they found out it wasn't working for them because they're being sold a product. And so what I try and do is always try to keep a baseline with everyone, and as soon as they start to try to dive a little bit too deep, I try to remind them, hey, make sure to check in with your health practitioner, your doctor, whoever your medical individual is, simply because as much as I know what I'm talking about, I feel very comfortable what I'm talking about. The problem is I don't know you. I see the words you're typing on the screen. I still don't know you. I have not seen it in action. I have not been taking notes and saying, okay, this is what you said on day 1. This is what you said on day 7. This is what you said on day 14. So that all this information is available, just like everyone's talking about, you know, what's important is the information. It's the same thing in health and fitness as well. And so people will cross that boundary quite regularly, but again, thankfully communicating with a very, very helpful mod team that I have nowadays has made that much easier. Also, me knowing that coming from doing it for so long, it's like people get so excited they jump to step 6 instead of we're on step 1 still. We're not done. Hold on. Hold on. I know you want to go, but you know, yeah, but look at you. I've been doing this for 27 years. So just slow your roll so you can help yourself. Don't put high expectations. We can go along with this. And then the final thing that's actually a bit more game related from a boundary aspect, I actually try to make sure to put in there all the time for warnings and disclaimers for flashing lights. Because I play a lot of retro games and I play them on old school consoles the majority of the time, which means unfortunately they have things like flashing lights. So I try to remind people of that boundary to help them know, oh, I should not look during that time, or whatever is helpful for them. I try to help them in that regard as well.
Yeah, I love that. I've noticed that too, because like especially like a game like Mega Man, you know, like sometimes there's parts where it flashes, and I'm really glad that you put that because sometimes like even for me, like I don't have those kind of sensitivities, but sometimes it does be like if I'm in a dark room all day, you know, like that could be. So I'm really glad that you take the time to do that. But what I'm noticing from all of your answers is basically that, you know, people utilize Twitch and our streams as third spaces. So when, you know, like they might have like a day where maybe today was a little bit rougher for them or, you know, whatever, you know, they'll come in and they just want somebody to talk to and connect with, maybe not realizing that there are certain things where, you know, yes, we are experts in some things and we openly encourage dialogue and discussions because of things that we've gone through in our lives, that there can be limits to how they are impacted by that information that we're sharing. So we always try to remind people like, this is my experience, like you're saying, Dee, this is my experience. It might be different for you, but go out and ask questions and explore, but don't necessarily be like, oh, that's the answer, right? Do you all find that you have to include that in your rule set? Like this kind of like, don't trauma dump, don't, you know, like overshare, be careful about, you know, like, is this something that you have to include in your rules?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, I've had that actually, something you and I discussed a few years ago, Ash, had that become a serious problem at one point where, like you said, people would show up. This is their third place, right? They're trying to get away from the stress in their life. They're trying to just be entertained. They're trying to relax. They get too comfortable. And they start oversharing details that people in chat aren't ready to digest, you know? And for some people, it's like you just need to tell them once because a friend of mine, Selena, like she said, when you're enforcing boundaries, it's your attempt to keep that person around, not push them out, right? You're like, hey,
Yes.
this is behavior that's not okay. Follow this. We're great. If we were trying to push them out, we would just ban them, wouldn't we?
Right. Right.
So it's like, for some people, that's most people, you just need to say that, and that's good. But for some people, they don't listen and they continue to do it, and that's when you really have to put the foot down effectively.
I think you put that so beautifully, Finn. It's not me pushing you away. It's me telling you that for you to remain comfortable and safe in this space, if you abide by this rule, we're going to be all gravy. It's going to be all good for everybody. And I feel like sometimes you're right. Like people get that like reaction of, what do you call it? Like that rejection reaction where it's like, oh, I did something
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not welcome here anymore. But it's the opposite. It's the complete
Right.
opposite. Like
Right.
personally for me, I am very uncomfortable if people call me pet names. Like if people are like, "Oh, sweetie, honey," baby, all that makes me deeply uncomfortable. So that is like a rule for me. Like don't call me that. And we're going to be good. So I get that. I get that.
I have that in my rule set as well, and it's wild how often that one has to get enforced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I also bring up one other just boundary of information sharing real quick?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
The other thing that I really try and focus on in my stream is people talking about educational level or their age, which I
Yes.
find is a huge thing,
Yeah.
especially on a platform as broad as Twitch is, anywhere from the age of 13 to people of any age. And the truth is, there's also a lot of people who are still not at that age and still join the platform. And the truth is, you never know anyone behind the screen. So I really try and set it up as you come in my channel, do not joke about your age. Do not talk about what level of school you're in, because you don't know who's in that chat with you. You don't know who's going to try and message you after the fact. And as much as we like to think that the world is a perfect place and that nothing bad could ever happen, there are people out there who test those boundaries and who do stalk in channels. And so I really try to make sure that we're setting up a safe space by making sure that people cannot track that information afterwards. And I find that is an extremely important thing that not enough people do. A lot of people just are like, whatever. But the truth is, there's been multiple articles that have talked on Twitch safety and other things like that over the years about younger people on the platform and about people who are bad actors or more malicious. And I find that it's very important to safeguard that information. Unless you are the broadcaster and you want to put that information out there, I'm fine with it because I'm more public facing than anything else. But for my viewers, I don't want them identifying themselves as, oh, I'm in high school, I'm doing this, because that's something that somebody can then come and find and harass that person or worse.
Yeah. Good point and very, very good call out. I know a lot of people have that in their rule set too. Like, don't bring up age, don't talk about it. That's an automatic ban. We don't even joke about that. So, yeah, very good call out. Okay, so what does the term parasocial mean and why is it important to the streaming space? So, Jen, I'm gonna go with you first. Then I'm gonna go D, Thor, and Finn.
All right. Well, do I know the exact definition of it? No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to get the points. So I apologize.
That's okay.
For
That's
that.
okay.
But pretty much it's the idea that we are communicating through another medium. So I'm on this side of the screen and I'm talking to a chat room that can talk to me, but I have nothing more than usernames to interact with. Right now, when I say, "Oh, don't worry, I have no problem calling you up, or I have no problem sending you photos," like, no, I don't, I don't need that. That's not the what I'm trying to get across to you. It's more so understanding that people feel like they are like they'll call like I've had this happen before where people start calling you friend and they tell you that they love you, and you could tell a difference between someone like broadly saying the term love versus you start noticing very particular sets of words and how they're phrased. You're like, ooh, that feels like it's hitting differently with this person. Like it doesn't just feels like a broad term, it feels like you're really saying I love you, and it's like, no, thank you. No, don't do that. And it's hard though too, because it's text. Text the so often if people are not adding emotion to it, so like let's say emotes are so helpful for trying to convey a better idea of what you're trying to get across, but at the same time different countries as well, because this is a worldwide platform, their sense of humor sometimes is here, yours is over here. So they do this and they're thinking they're totally fine, and they bring it down a notch thinking they're still fine, but they still have not gotten to your level because for them that's just not how they would communicate. So the parasocial aspect of things is so fascinating, because how you can really make a large impact on people's lives. Like I've had people come back in my channel that haven't talked in 5-6 years, and they've told me about how they've lost 80 pounds, 100 pounds, and not even working with me, just by simply listening to my channel, listening to some of the advice, and like, okay, I want to make sure I have water all the time. Oh, I don't have enough fiber. I know you always talk about D and all this poop jokes and stuff like this, but more fiber intake's really good for my body. Like, yeah, this has been making a difference. And so like all those kinds of things, like it's so interesting that you have an intention with your content, but as the creator, there's this parasocial aspect that you are going to miss out on because you're in it, right? And I know some of all these casters here, I would say Ash is the only one who probably doesn't consistently do an 8-hour stream per week, but most of these casters here do 8-hour streams or longer at periods and times for whatever reason. Maybe it's an event, maybe it's because you haven't been able to stream for a couple of weeks because of health reasons and what have you. But when you start to go for that long a period of time, it's such an interesting aspect because you're so passionate about what you're doing, you're comfortable, assumedly, because you're in your own space, that some of those things you don't realize that you just start to go on autopilot for. And when you go on autopilot, the parasocial aspect also gets exacerbated a little bit further. And I never want people feeling that my connectedness to them that is genuine is being misconceived as me having a direct correlation with our personal relationship. I always tell people, you want the opportunity to interact with me. That's why I like to go to things like a TwitchCon, because that allows that possibility for that to be a safe space for me, that I can meet somebody. This is not for everyone. Don't do this to every creator. I'm telling you about my specific safeness, is that I feel, oh, now we can have a more developed relationship here, versus I'm not in the age anymore of going, that was the cats. They want it. Anyways. I'm sorry. They get vicious with the door. They now can come in and now they lose it. That I feel very comfortable with that sense versus hit me up. Hey, I know you're in the Bay Area. Do you want to hang out? I know most people have such good intentions about what they're doing. Unfortunately, though, because I've dealt with a stalker in my past, that like my red flags and my alarms are going off like crazy. And so therefore that's how I would put it too. Like really pay attention to how individuals present themselves. If they say, hey, my DMs are closed, really respect that if you really want to be genuine with someone. And that's my input on that. I'm going to pass off before these cats make me go crazy.
Wow. I definitely think you sold yourself short there by saying you didn't know what parasocial meant, because I really feel like you hit a lot of things right on the head of, one-way relationships, or me not being able to perceive what other people feel or are thinking about me, or like what they, consider like a friend, or any of those kinds of things. So thank you for sharing that. That was a lot of really good information. Dee, what do you got to say about it?
I mean, yeah, I think Jen covered so much of it so well. And I think, for me, I've watched it happen in real time, right? Where I used to be very open and I didn't hide my DMs. I always thought everyone had good intentions. And if someone went out of line, then I was always like, oh, well, a mod will handle it then. Until I too have dealt with some situations where it got scary and I've been followed at events and it got a little too real. And unfortunately now, and something that I still struggle with, right? I don't have it all figured out, is that it's had to create really hard line, clear definitions and talk about parasocial relationships really like regularly. Like I'll talk about my friends on stream all the time. And a lot of my friends are on this panel right now. Like they're streamer friends. We talk all the time. We have this relationship. We hang out at conventions. And a lot of people have tried to, I think, just verbally, just because they're in the stream, they watch us all hang out, they see us interact online, they think they're in that group too. So I've had to have those conversations, and I do have closed DMs now. No one can DM me. And I've had to reiterate the why. When I go, my friends can DM me. I love the community. Chat with me on Discord. I'm like really accessible there. We have a ticketing system in my Discord if it's like private. But that's a boundary for me. Like, I'm not readily accessible. I'm accessible to my friends. And I think just having to kind of spell it out that way, there have been some people who've gotten upset about it. And to me, as a creator, that is like, okay, that person maybe doesn't have the best intentions because they're angry about my comfort level versus someone who's like, oh, I totally respect that. But hey, I live in your area and I'm going to this thing and here's an invite. Like, that's a little bit more understandable for me now too. But I think it's, like Jen said, like not everyone has negative intentions, but you do have to be safe and you do have to be careful because people change too. And it, you need to do it what level you're comfortable with. And I think just me in my experience with my community, talking about the negative and saying like, hey, I've been through this with someone where they seemed great and normal and wonderful, and then they showed up to an event and this happened, and really sharing those stories. So many people go, oh my gosh, I had no idea that could happen. And it helps them evaluate the way they interact with streamers because then they go, oh, okay, wow, yeah, that thing I said maybe would make someone uncomfortable if they thought I could be that person. And it's instead of taking it so personally, they start to kind of see the big picture of what we all really deal with behind the scenes a lot.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head there, especially when it comes to seeing people online and seeing people in real life. And I like that you said you keep yourself safe with like the ticketing system. That's a idea I've never heard anybody talk about. And I think that could be really helpful and useful to people who may be dealing with, feeling overwhelmed by constantly feeling like anybody could reach out to them at any time. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I recommend it to everybody. Like since I set that up in my Discord, it's been so great.
Awesome.
If someone's, I mean, they have to be comfortable going to me and my mod team because that's who sees it. But if I'm like, if you're not comfortable telling my mods something, then I don't know if I want to be the
Right.
person to handle it for you.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Thor and Finn, do you have stuff to add?
Finn, do you want to go?
I think one of the interesting things about parasocial is that it seems, at least on Twitch and content creation, to have a very negative connotation a lot of the time, but there are very much positive aspects of it. Taking D for example here, her love of the character Vivi in Final Fantasy IX and the emotional connection she has, that's parasocial as well. So like it can be beneficial. It's not all bad. But it is spun that way a lot of the times because we often hear the loudest people, and the loudest ones are usually the angry ones. So like I always try to keep that perspective, but on the same page, like everything everyone else here has said about like, hey, I've experienced this in the past and I've experienced that, and I have to be really careful now about who I trust with what information. And at the end of the day, a lot of the people that are watching us, we don't know them personally, like at all, and they don't really know us personally. Like they only know what they see that we put out there. So it's really hard to keep that boundary and that separation because those lines are very blurry a lot of the time.
Especially when we're connecting on so many emotional levels because we're playing games that people love. We're talking about like topics that we feel passionate about, whether that's video game music or food or travel or whatever. Like you could see how people connect. They want to connect. They want maybe like they feel safe because they feel like, oh, this is a space where I could make friends with maybe the other chatters and the streamer, but they don't know that like we and them can only present a finite amount of information in the amount of time we spend with each other, but we don't know what it's like really being in the same room with that person, you know? So Thor, do you have anything to add?
I guess I'd say like the one really big thing about parasocial relationships, I think it's been hit on a couple times now, but it's just a lot of times people will expend so much energy trying to put themselves forward for somebody who, and not to sound crass about it, for somebody who may not even realize that they exist. They might not even be aware that this person is trying to get their attention. Like sometimes there will be times where somebody might come forward and be like, wow, I made this really amazing art piece for you, and they're really excited to present it to you, and you're just like, oh, thank you, and you don't give them the reaction that they want, and they have not a meltdown, but they get angry at the fact that you didn't react the way that you expected that, or they expected you to react. And it creates an awkward, tense situation of how do I resolve this? Because yes, this person did something for me, but I wasn't expecting it. And now I'm feeling uncomfortable. And this person is getting out of line. And that usually comes down to you need to have a solid talk with somebody. But a lot of time, parasocial can just be the fact that somebody's putting in so much time and energy into something to try and do something for somebody who may not even realize they exist. And I think a lot of people get really caught up in this and don't even realize it. This can even come down to things like, for instance, sometimes when people donate or give subs on Twitch or bits, they're doing all this and like, oh man, I hope they're grateful. And you know, as content creators, yes, we can be grateful, but once again, we don't know these people. They don't know also what that's allowing us to do, but it is still that same aspect of there can still be that parasocial relationship of they're putting all this time and this money into us, but that doesn't necessarily, well, that doesn't further that boundary, that doesn't lessen that boundary either. And I think that's a very important aspect to bring in, because even the act of donating biddies or subs or things like that still falls into that transact or not transactional relationship, that relationship of being a Twitch streamer. And I think that's a very important conversation to have, as I've seen many times where streamers will be harassed by the people doing this, and the streamers put into an awkward situation of, well, like, what do I do? And the correct answer for that is time or money does not entitle you towards extra access to the streamer.
I really, really am so glad you brought that up, because yes, it can feel like sometimes, you know, support means access. Like they're like, well, I gave you this and I gave you that, and why aren't you reciprocating? And it's like, how do you like it's such a like unique and specific topic for broadcasters to handle, right? It's like, you enjoy my content, like you're getting the content, right? Like that's what you're getting. You're getting, I'm able to do more of the content through your support. So we have to make sure that that is extremely upfront of the content is what you're supporting, and you know that's where the expectation, the line should be drawn, you know. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's a tough it's a tough thing to navigate.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it actually made me think of the Eminem song. I think it's called Dodo. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's the one where basically the guy is writing all these letters to Marshall Mathers of how much he cares and all this stuff, and then the letters aren't being responded to, so he gets darker and darker and darker with the letters as it goes on until you get to the final ending of it, which was, you know, a sad ending. But then by the time he gets to write them, he's like, now he's learning about something on the news that just happened, which happened to be, that's what happened. And didn't even know that person existed, was going to get to it, but it wasn't that same person's timeline. And so I picture that all the time when I'm as soon as Thor had started mentioning, I was like, oh, I was like, that has to happen so much more than even I'm aware of. And I try to be as acknowledgeable of those kinds of things. And I can imagine it happens to anyone here on this panel too.
Yeah.
I tell me why I thought you were talking about the candy, but also the other thing too behind that is I always try and let people know, like when they donate or give subs or anything, I let them know it's like everyone here is equal. The broadcaster I have, or the people in my chat, are all equal. Nobody is going to get more or less access. And you know, I will meet people along the way that I do form further relationships with and friendships deeper on as I meet them at events and get a chance to talk with them more in comfortable spaces, which I think was a really, really important topic that was hit on earlier, is that comfortability. But the thing is, it's like nothing entitles anybody to more or less access. I'm still not going to let those people come in and push that boundary of what I would normally allow on stream. It's like in the chat, in the moment, everyone is going to be equal in that process to set a boundary that these are the rules, this is how we react, this is how we respond. And it is important that everybody sees it like that, because otherwise people think, well, how can I get past this like this person does?
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that. And also, thank you to Bowser the Bun for the raid. Thank you for bringing your community on over if you've never been here. My name is Ash, and we are doing a talk show on, it's called Streamer Strategies, and it's about boundaries called The Broadcaster and Me. And I'm joined by General Andrews, 8-Bit-D Phenomenon, and Thormangander. So, welcome on in, Raiders. Thank you for being here. And thank you so much, Thor, for sharing that. Such a good point. So, that brings us to our next question, which is, do you ever feel like you have to be someone you're not on Twitch? And, like like for an example, you must stream, but you don't feel 100% like yourself or 100% happy. Will you call the stream off or keep going? Like, do you ever feel like you kind of have to perform and do something even though, you're not really feeling that way? And I'm gonna start with D first.
Yeah, this is like a normal day-to-day fight for me. As I've said, like I live with an illness, and my illness is famous for basically being like a dice roll every morning. Um, and I will either feel okay, or I will feel not okay, or I will have a 10 out of 10 pain day, or I will be bedridden. So it's always, it's just a lottery when I wake up in the morning. And at the end of the day, this is my job, and I take it really seriously. And I do, no matter what, try to show up. And some weeks, it's a game time decision for me. If I sit in my chair and I go to hit go live and I'm dreading it, I will make that call. I have to always have that conversation with myself. Like, well, trying to do this and pushing through it and putting a mask on, which like anyone who lives with chronic illness or any sort of, I know a lot of people who are neurodivergent are very familiar with masking. Also, it's can I put that on and still put on a good show? Because if I make other people laugh and other people are having fun, then it will make me feel better. So it's always that debate of like, will it be enough to push me through so I can enjoy it when I get the feedback? Or am I at the point where that's not going to happen? And there is a personal threshold. And I think each and every one of us has that. I myself will talk to other creators that I'm friends with. If I'm doing my makeup and I'm getting ready in a call with one of my friends, one of whom is in chat right now. Hi, Ellie. If I'm talking to Ellie and I'm like, you know what, I really don't want to stream today, I'm not feeling it. And I'll explain why. Sometimes just talking it out, I'm like, all right, you know what? No, I can push through this. Or sometimes it's game time. No, I can't. And I think it's really important to be honest with yourself, because we do care about our communities and we love our communities. I'll go right on stream and tell my community, I'm really struggling today. For me, I'm not comfortable hiding it. So I will just come out and say, I'm in a really bad pain day today. So we're going to play Final Fantasy 14 and we're just going to have a chill stream. I don't feel well.
Mm-hmm.
Or some days, I feel like if I talk about it, I'm going to dwell on it. So I just kind of will talk about other things I've done and hope that enough of the interaction helps me push through. It really is. I think you need to be honest with yourself. And I don't think there's a one size fits all answer for that. I think everyone needs to come up with their own process. For me, transparency is the name of the game. So I have no issue trying to stream and then an hour in being like, you know what, I'm not feeling it. And that to me is being honest with my community and setting the expectation that I'm not going to sit there miserable if I'm not having a good time. And, we'll pass the love to someone else, or we can sit and have I've had days where I've gone live and the entire stream has turned into a mental health chat or a physical health chat. And that's helped me and that's helped other people. So I think it's like feeling the degree of the room and knowing your community and what your boundaries are. Some people I know really kind of play up a part of their personality on stream, and I don't want to say playing a character, but they play a version of themselves and they run their show a certain way, and they can't do that. And that's totally valid too, because their audience would be really shocked, I think, if they started talking about those things. So I think it's about knowing your audience, knowing what kind of show that you produce. For me personally, it's just way easier to be like very honest, but that's the way I put out my content. My stream is stories about the ridiculous things I've done and my own experiences. So it fits my community very well.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thor, Finn, Jen, do you have something to add?
Oh, yeah, I'll take it. I was gonna say, honestly, my thing is with my ADHD, I am terrible about masking. So when I'm on stream, I very much I'm just me. And if something is getting on my nerves, or maybe I'm wanting to deal with something, I deal with it right away. Because if I don't, it's just gonna sit in my mind. I'm gonna replay it over and over, and it takes over the stream. And over the years, I've managed to formulate that if something is going on, address it immediately, get it out of the way. If there's anything further that needs to be done, I tell my mods, hey, this is what happened. This is what I need you to deal with. this allows me to get back to the stream, and I'm really not good at putting on a personality on stream. Like the person I am here is the same person I'm going to be in person. I'm not good at putting on like, oh, let's go have a happy show kind of thing. Like I like to meme, I like to play around, I like to joke, but I also just I can't hold up a facade for 8-10 hours at a time. Because it's exhausting. Like my entire life with ADHD, I had to mask in society because I'm
Yeah.
not seen as normal. And Finn, I'm sure you can relate to this a lot as well. Just
Yeah.
not being seen as like, why do you move like that when you talk? Why are you like doing all these weird things, which I found out later was called stimming,
Yeah.
and ostracized for it. And when I'm streaming, that's kind of like my time to just be me and express myself. So I find it really important to just show people that, because I find that if I'm honest with people, then there's no extra energy output that I have to really take the time to curate and put out further. And it's less exhausting for me, because as much as I love streaming, I think we can all agree with this. As much as we love streaming, as much as we enjoy what we do, it is still very much an energy intensive labor of love that we are going to have days where we just need breaks. And Dee was talking about, just getting ready to start. I mean, I deal with that a lot of days where I'm just like, I will have executive dysfunction, where it's like I might try and put out a tweet for 2 hours just that I'm going to go live, or just I might sit at my computer at a blank screen and not do anything. And I know I can do the things. I know it'd be easy, but I just cannot do it. There's a mental block there that prevents me. And on those days, I'm like, hey, everyone, I just really don't have the energy today. My mind isn't really where it needs to be. And then some days I'm just like, I'll come on and be like, I'm going to be low energy. You might not find me talking as much. You might find me talking about some different kinds of subjects. But I think that communication is important. And I think it's really important to listen to yourself. And for me, it's very important for me to just be myself, because that's why I love streaming personally, is just that I get to show who I am without judgment of others. And if somebody does judge me, then I ban them.
Finn, Jen, do you have anything to add? I know, Finn, you wanted to say something.
Well, yeah, like the question being, do you ever feel like you have to be someone you're not on Twitch? That's
For
like
sure.
24/7 life for me.
Really?
Like, yeah, constantly. Like it's the masking that Thor touched on. And it's amplified on Twitch because not only do people have some expectations of what you do and what you create, most of which are reasonable, some are not. But when you have a neurodivergent brain like mine and Thor's, we create these expectations in our heads that are always excessively unreasonable.
Yep.
I'm
like,
learning.
it's just-
I'm learning about I've never heard stimming before, and I'm learning about masking as you all are talking about it.
I've been stimming this whole call.
Same. Like I've just been doing this and holding this and gripping this, so I'm not waving my hands or looking all around. Even
Yeah.
when we were at PAX East and I was sitting back on my leg, and by the end of the day, I couldn't walk on my leg. That was me stimming so that I was doing something else while I was engaging, because
Yeah.
otherwise I move all around.
Wow, I learned today. All right, sorry to cut you off, Finn. Do you have anything else to add? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I think like
Okay.
I just like, yes, it's like I do feel like I have to be someone else, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Like I felt like that Twitch for me was a slow unraveling of that masking over time. So what people get from me on stream is myself amplified. I don't know, like anyone who's ever hung out with me outside of stream, whether it's in person or in a call, usually notices that my energy level is much lower.
Gotcha.
And I'm just like a lot more relaxed and laid back. But I like to amp it up for stream. Like I put it all on the table. So it's like, yeah, I do feel like I have to be someone else, but I'm not. I'm just being, I believe what you or Dee said earlier, I'm presenting a portion of myself
Yeah.
to the audience.
Can I ask you a question, Finn? Do you find that it gives you a hyper focus that you can pour your energy into? Because that's very much what I do with streaming, is I pour in all that time and all that energy. And it's not necessarily an amplified me, but it's a way for me to get everything out that's been trapped in all day.
Yeah. Well, it's like initially streaming for me was a hyperfixation, but I kept with it because I wanted to see if it was something I was actually interested in. That's the interesting thing about this is that you have to determine if you're fixated on something or you actually enjoy it. So, I mean, 8.5 years later, I'm still doing it. So it's not a hyperfixation, but it helps me hyperfocus.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that about yourselves. Jen, do you have anything to add?
All right, so I do less masking and more capping. Okay, so that's what I mostly do. Okay, so just so you know, let's make sure that we get that out there. Well, there's some of these elements. Yes, like I'm. Any of these people who've met me in person here can also attest to this, is that depending on what we're talking about, are we in a chill mode? I'm much more chill in person. When we're hype mode, when you see me in person, I'm pretty excitable. I got some energy about me.
Yeah.
Especially if you accidentally have caffeine.
Oh yeah, we try to avoid that I use caffeine to bring me back to normal. I never want caffeine if I'm already at normal. That's a bad thing. But let's go back to the whole topic here. Is there anything that I'm doing that's different? Absolutely. Entertaining. I don't entertain every single second of every single moment of every single day. Now, I naturally fall into that for whatever reason, whatever creative aspect, artistically speaking, or just I'm a goofball, whatever it may be. There is more of that on stream, or it's more focused because it's meant to be connecting with people. It's meant to lift them up or educate, depending on where we're going with the subject matter. But one of the things I'll run into all the time is, oh my gosh, she's got hair. So as a good example of this whole aspect of, wondering, am I different than I really am? A person like, I have hair, it's real, it's there. If I let it grow, it's a fro. When people see me in a different color, I wore blue, like for example, when I'm not streaming, I'm wearing blue, so no one recognizes me out in person. So if I post online that I'm wearing blue, people freak out. They freak out, and it's like, I'm a human being. Like I'm not some cartoon character that always has to be in their same outfit. Like I'm real, So that happens to me. So is it as hard as what anybody else on the panel has had to deal with as like what they deal in personally? No, but I definitely notice it, and it becomes something that's fun to talk about right now. But overall, it's like, come on, folks, I'm a human being just like you. I like to wear different clothes. I like to do different things, but the branding has helped me be noticed in a sea of amazing creators, and therefore I lean into that a little bit more. I'm a little more extra on some things because people notice, and maybe people are like, hey, that was a little bit funny this time. I want to come back for a little bit more funny. Awesome. And that's my little 2 bits on that.
Yeah. It's like Jen is like the opposite. Instead of putting on a mustache and glasses, you just switch to a different color and nobody knows it's you.
Yeah, if I take my shades off, nobody recognizes me at conventions.
You've told me that. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's how I know the Clark Kent disguise is perfect.
It's really real. It's really real. Wow. Okay. Are there topics you think streamers should be more careful about sharing on external social media? Yeah. I have some thoughts on that, but
I do too.
yeah. Who wants to go first on this? Jen, go ahead.
I'm going to go first. So some of the things I like to avoid are real life names. That could be of my own parents. That could be of my friends. I've had it before. I'm very, very lucky that my real life friends have decided to, at different junctures, pop into my stream and be super supportive. And maybe they decide to have their name as a part of, they just put their name as their username. That's on them if that's their choice to do so. But it's the idea of getting across, like, I don't want to give those pieces of information away personally. If they choose to, at least they've made that, choice in that manner. But I think that's really important. Same thing with like exact locations. So like, for example, it's like, oh, I'm in San Francisco. Where in San Francisco? Well, you don't get to know. Well, how much is that going to cost? Well, if you want to pay me $10 million so I can disappear, sure, go ahead and do that. But that's not the reality of the conversation that's happening at hand. They want you to know. So maybe most of the time, again, it's just so they could run into and have a conversation and start something. It's not malicious. Unfortunately, there is at least one malicious person out there somewhere at some point in time, and you got to avoid them. And unfortunately, that means you have to siphon that information back so that the malicious person can't get it, even though you're willing to probably share it with the other 99% of the people that are there.
Mm-hmm. And it's recorded. that information is permanently accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we delete it, there are places where people re-upload stuff and can re-upload stuff without our knowledge. So yeah, protect yourself, protect your necks. D, what do you got to say about it?
Yeah, no, the name thing is a great call out, but I've seen even, it's just an unfortunate reality of the industry, but a lot of people deal with, stalking and a lot of serious issues, and we've seen it with big and small creators, right? It doesn't matter, and I've seen so many people be very comfortable about where they live and showing room tours, and a lot of people have asked me to do cooking streams, and I'm not comfortable with it, and I've had to express that all someone needs to find where you live sometimes is your backdrop of your general area and a building next to you that they could see through a window.
Yep.
And I'm not comfortable doing it. I have a kitchen that's like quite unique. I don't need some like the lack of able to hide certain things online. There's so much of internet information available all the time, and it's frighteningly easy. Some people make a living on TikTok literally being challenged to find where people are located. It's a thing. And I've had to limit a lot of that and have those conversations. And so many people are like, "Oh, I had no idea." And I'm like, "Yeah, if you have a unique a backdrop in your kitchen or a black splash that's different, backsplash rather, sorry, on your, kitchen setup, like that alone is something someone can use to like find you if they go looking at home listings." And I've seen a lot of people be really, really comfortable. They'll post on Instagram that they're like at a cafe and they'll tag the location and they're not waiting a day to post it. They're like posting it in real time. So it's just things like that that I'm always like, oh, because I've had bad experiences. I'm like hyper aware, but also it's just general internet safety for anybody, even if you're not a content creator, because social media is so readily available and it takes one photo to get the wrong person fixated on the wrong thing and the wrong person with bad intentions. Like Jen said, like 99.9% of people are great and just mean well. But it takes that one person to have something go south very quickly. And unfortunately, at least in the US, like safety and law and all that sort of stuff around it is really difficult to enforce. So it can be like a really long, unlivable scenario for people.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Finn, Thor?
Oh man, I mean, there is so much that I think so many streamers don't realize about how much they share from the clothes they wear. Like for people who are just getting off of work, I've seen so many streamers who have like specifically branded business names or even getting certain food deliveries to their house from like specialized restaurants. And I always tell people, like be very careful. Like if you're going to order something, make sure that you are preparing it in the other room, bringing it in on a separate plate. Even something as simple as like, oh, I do all these things in the general area. I actually one time had somebody who was a viewer of mine who actually lived in the same building as me. And they used to come in and they used to share, and this is my big thing with people, is oh my god, what's it called? Not milestones, markers, like general land markers. Be very careful about how you describe the geography around you, even if it's not being seen. Like some people are like, oh, it was so great getting a chance to do this the other day with you, or this or this. I always tell people, and I went down to this person, I told them, do not share there we go, there's the word, landmarks near me, because people can use that to identify me. And it's like, there are certain things where I'm like, okay, it's okay for people to know this because they can't define the general area. But if you give them like specific names of a place that I eat at because you know where I am and we know each other, it's like that gives people identifying information. So I tell people, be careful with describing landmarks near you. Be careful with getting food near you. If you're gonna open up packages on stream, rip off the label. Like these are all small things that people really don't think about. And even taking photos out and about places that might be near you, like running trails, stuff like that. Some people are like, oh, I wanted to share my fitness stuff today, and they'll go ahead and share this fantastically unique running trail that you can very easily find through photos. So I just tell people there's a lot of information out there, but especially especially having specific clothing or ordering from specific food places, be very careful.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of like information, I think one thing a lot of people overlook, and most social media platforms are good about this, but we can't expect that, is the metadata and EXIF data stored on images and videos. When
Mm-hmm.
you upload that online, if it's not filtered properly, people can find out some extremely particular details about the GPS coordinates where that photo was taken, for example, or settings that were on your phone that were active at the time. So like that's information that a lot of us are sharing online that we aren't even doing, like we aren't even aware
Intentional.
we're
Yeah.
doing. So
Mm-hmm.
there's settings in your cameras you can do to turn those things off, or you can filter them on your PC or whatever. But that's always something to be aware of when you're sharing, you know, things on social media.
Thank you for
And
sharing that, Finn.
the last thing is too, to add on to that, because I studied and do photography outside of here. One of the big things is a lot of social medias will actually look at photos and tag them based on landmarks within those photos. So make sure before you post something that it is not automatically tagging a landmark for you and identifying your information. And also just using messaging systems. For a long time, some of these media messaging you near blank. And that is just a huge privacy concern right there. So if you're going to message on social media through for any reason, make sure that you turn off those location services, the ability for people to identify where you're messaging from, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people overlook that. And that is one of the first things that you should do when creating any social media account.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm going to share one very quick story. I saw somebody post they were on a flight on their way to someplace, and they didn't even post like themselves. They just posted like a photo outside the window. And based on the photo outside the window, a person was able to see they were able to tell exactly what seat they were in based on the model of the plane and exactly where their flight path was. And they were able to find their full name and information based on exactly like where that picture was showing, like down on the geography of the planet. So yeah, be very careful of location based photos and, information like that. And yeah, I love the idea of if I went to a convention, if I went somewhere and hung out with y'all, let's wait 2 or 3 days before we post that photo. We don't got to post that right now. So yeah, thank you for sharing all of your stories on
I'm
that.
sorry. I'm just eager. I'm just so eager. Slow me down.
I
Slap that phone
know.
out of my hand.
We have so many good, like whenever we go to conventions, we have so many good memories. So I get it. I get it. Yeah. Okay. How do you balance your personal life and streaming life, and do they ever bleed into each other? Who wants to take that one on first? Cuz I know for me, I definitely try to make sure that there is at least a work life balance. So that
Mm-hmm.
way it doesn't stress out, like maybe outside factors. Like if I know I have a trip and I'm going to go see my mom, like, I don't have like a big workload and I could really spend my time being with my family and being with my friends. So do you ever feel like the personal and work of being a broadcaster bleeds into each other?
Um, Honestly, for me, I set very specific boundaries for myself of like when I'm taking time. So I don't have them bleed into each other that often, but sometimes I will take time and say, yes, I want to be a part of an event. Yes, I want to take part in a collab with somebody, or maybe I want to travel out to some event, and that usually can coincide with my off time because I'll take my Saturdays, my Sundays, and my Mondays off. I'm very much a firm believer of having ample time compared to the amount of time you work to rest and relax and do things outside of Twitch. So I think for me, like it is fun to share some of that journey with friends occasionally. We joke about it, but I try and keep that as far away from the things I'm doing outside so I can, and this goes for a different reason too, so I can have stuff to share when I come back to stream about my experience. If life only becomes about the stream and only about the things you do on stream and you are always talking about streaming, then you become a little bit boring. And I find that it's very important to have extra things that you experience outside of that so that you can have things to talk about with people, maybe that are not oversharing or super sensitive information, but just experiences that you're having. And it also allows you to really refresh and relax and come back to things with a new renewed sense of vigor, because I think that's one thing a lot of people just don't do. They think I need to be streaming all the time. I need to constantly be thinking of how to upgrade my content. I need to constantly be putting myself out there. And when it comes to full-time streaming, there is a lot of, you do need to be very aggressive and, what you want to look at. But it is also really important to pull back and say, I need time to rest myself. So when I do this, I don't burn out from it. And so I really try and set up that barrier of, these are the days I will stream. These are the things I will do on those days while I'm streaming. And then these are the things I will not touch on my days off, specifically so I don't get into the habit of saying, I'd like to spend time with the girlfriend, but I need to upgrade this. Any day I stream is a day to stream and upgrade the stream. And then on my days off, it's there for me to travel, spend time with the girlfriend, do whatever.
So Thor's calling me out, and I don't know why you decided to go and just focus on me. Is it the red? Was that why you saw the red and you're like, okay, I'm going to say what Jen's doing wrong. He's bleeding everything, and the problem is being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
your own boss in most scenarios, unless maybe you have a talent agency that very specifically has whatever with you. But still, most of the time, you're your own boss, which means, unfortunately, we're really harsh on ourselves. We are really have high expectations of what we do, maybe unrealistic expectations of what we can do. I don't know how often I'm like, okay, cool. So I can work out today, and I'll have like a couple hours in between my workout and my stream, and I'm going to go ahead and get this project, this project, this project, this project, and this project done. Because if I take like 15 to 20 minutes on each of these, it'll be great. Okay. It never works that way. Because why? It took me at least an hour to decide, hey, which project am I going to tackle right now? And then when I finally do that, am I in a creative enough space to do that and then go ahead and be an entertainer? Unfortunately not. So, does it bleed? Yes. But one of the things I know that like myself and like Ellie have worked on a lot is creating some of those boundaries. Recently, no, because we have different things going on for a particular content push. But beforehand, we were creating, okay, our Friday, that's our day. We try to make sure not to let it become anything besides our time, which, being long distance is a little bit tougher than if it was in person. That'd be even more rewarding, more relaxed, more laid back, and really recharge oriented. But it's still a stepping stone in the right direction to create like what Thor is talking about, which is days on, days off, days on, and days off.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm able to look at that now, is because before content creation and even during content creation, I've been a professional photographer for the last 13 years. So I've always been in that entrepreneurial mindset. And there were very much days where that would bleed into my regular days, where I'd be working, editing batches of thousands of photos in a day. And it would be like, well, this is my day relaxing. And am I really relaxing? And I burnt out so many times. So over the years, from the experience of going through that rigorousness, I very much learned you need to do this if you want to do this consistently, and you need to give yourself the time if you want to do this long term, because otherwise you'll come to hate what you do and you'll try and force yourself to stay in it despite it not being possible.
I love that. Those are some really, really, really good pieces of advice. Do you all have anything else to share about it?
I think for me, it's really hard to separate because so much of my
Yeah.
stream is my life experience, right? Like I talk so openly about being chronically ill. So, I try to, I share so much. And a lot of it even isn't that. A lot of the time I'm just telling someone about this awkward moment I had because I'm an awkward person and like it's just funny story time. So a lot of that is interwoven. And also, for me personally, like I live in Washington, D.C. So I'm constantly kind of talking about my my life here and all the things that happen. And I try to keep people included to like take them on the journey with me. Because I think I'm such a product of where I live all the time. When I lived in New York City, it was always telling wild stories about all the things that happen
Yeah.
there. And I think that stuff is important because that helps me connect with people. So it is an interesting thing because I definitely do have my disconnect days, and I tell everyone that very publicly. Like for me, it's really essential to have a block of time every 2 weeks where I unplug, no screens, no phone, no internet, no nothing, and I just whatever I do at that time is me time. It's my disconnect time. But I think I definitely do have that struggle otherwise of, and similar to how Jen called himself out, of balancing that, right? I met my partner online and now we live together, but we still have those same habits we had where it was like,
Yeah.
this is our night to be online gaming and doing this thing together. And my friends are all online, so I want to be in voice calls all the time and be around people.
Yep.
And then I have that pressure when I'm at my PC. It's like I should be working because our job is so interconnected to the internet, right? So it is definitely that thing. And I think what's helped me a lot is being like, this reserve time, there's a to-do list, do this, then you can have this time. I have to like really plan out and regiment my time and write things down. I'm a big list writer and stuff. And I feel like that's kind of how I've maintained the boundary for myself because otherwise I won't disconnect and
Yeah.
I'll overshare and I'll do too much.
Oh my God. I feel like you just described me to a T as well. It's like if I'm sitting at my computer, it's like there has to be one little piece of work done in there. I can't just be like chilling, But yeah, it's
Yeah.
really hard to disconnect that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
yeah, yeah.
interesting because that's why I got a Steam Deck. I was like, I need something I can play my games
Yeah.
away from the computer. I was like, you live in my bed now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that saved me many times, my Steam Deck.
Yeah. Finn, do you have anything to add?
I'm similar to D. Like I incorporate so much of my personal experiences into the stream that they are constantly bled into each other.
Yeah.
The only real separations I have are like physical boundaries outside. So I'm extremely careful about like giving details about where I live, for example. And I don't like people know my first name, like it's on my page, but otherwise like I just, like there's like real hardline boundaries there, but it's hard for me to see a more of a separation there other than like what Dee says where she regiments her time. Like after a certain time at night, I try to cut myself off if I'm working on something unless I'm like hyper fixated on it. Like 5 a.m. or whatever. It's like done. No more. Play Baldur's Gate or something. Just turn it all off. I have
Yeah.
to, or I just lose my damn mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely have a hard time with that. Like there'll be times where I'm working on something. I'm like, oh, I guess we back on DGen hours. So here we are.
Yeah, I'll get a DM from Ash like, okay, I got this done. I'm like, Ash, what are you doing working? Like, if it's 2 a.m. for me, it's like that's 5 a.m. for you. What are you doing?
I'm
I'll just
sorry.
see Finn like 4 a.m. in the morning playing Darkest Dungeon and just pop in like, hey, you doing good there?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm guilty. Guilty is charged. All right. So let's get into probably our last question, which is going to be, what is the best way to ensure your personal boundaries are respected when folks try to get too familiar with you, like pet names, oversharing, unsolicited DMs, and stuff like that? And the reason why this is probably going to be the last question is I want to make sure we at least take a couple of questions from chat. And then, I don't want to take up like all of your time. I know, we're very, very busy and, talented people. So you got things to do and places to be. But yeah, I know Thor, you wanted to go first on that one. So tell us what you think.
Honestly, when it comes to making sure that people respect my boundaries, it's being very direct. It comes down to honestly taking a hard line and laying down the law of the land and just telling them, hey, this is something I feel uncomfortable with. Please don't do that again. Otherwise, this will be the result. Explaining the entire timeline of this action was taken. This made me feel weird or, hurt or disrespected. And then letting them know, like, if you do this again, I'm going to have to do this. Usually people will show you what they're going to do right then and there, and it allows you to tackle it, either saying, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Let me take that into account. Let me make sure I don't do that. Or they'll say, well, I wasn't trying to be mean, and they'll try and play it off, in which case I'm just going to remove them from the community. They are no longer a thought in my mind. And I think this is so important is because so many people try to skate around this. They try and say, oh, I don't want this person to leave. And I think we brought this up earlier. It's like we are laying down that boundary so that way people know we want you to stay, but you need to hear what we're saying and you need to listen to it. Otherwise, you have to leave. And so I think that you need to get better. Just everyone in general needs to be better about being very direct with people, whether it's comfortable for us or not, because the act of already being disrespected has already placed us in an uncomfortable state. And that will only continue if you do not directly outline this, present it, and then tackle it.
And you don't know, like, it's making you uncomfortable. People in
Yeah.
chat could be very uncomfortable too, and there's
Yeah.
no real way for them to indicate that,
Yeah, they
other
won't
than
tell you. They'll just leave.
they'll just leave.
Exactly.
Exactly. Finn, do you want
I
to?
always
Yeah.
say like viewers are smart. If they can tell, like if you're uncomfortable, they know. They'll
Yeah.
know you're uncomfortable, and they're not going to tell you, like you said. They're just going to leave. So it's like the best way to ensure personal boundaries are respected are to be direct and attack them head on. And you can do so diplomatically. It's like we were talking about earlier with hey, it's our attempt to keep these people here and not push them out. But this is the line. Do not cross it. So when people get too familiar, it's always important to be very proactive about that. What was the old phrase I heard years back? There was a speech given, and the guy said, the standard that you walk by is the standard you abide. So if you just ignore it, that's the same as condoning it, as far as everyone's concerned. They're like, oh, they just let this happen, so that's okay here. So it's like, if you just let this happen, that's a slippery slope that you've just opened up. And a lot of people, the perception of you is going to be that you're okay with those things.
Yeah. Very good point. D, Jen, do you have things to add?
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm gonna let D go, but D Jen, I mean, you gotta work with us here, please. Okay, D, go ahead.
Oh, snap, yo.
I thought in my head briefly. I was like, I could make that joke, and I chose not to. And then you just went for it.
I got you.
I love it. Thank you for going
Thanks,
for
bud.
it. That was good.
Solid
We
aim.
got to clip that.
No, oh God. No, I mean, I think that Finn and Thorn nailed this, but it's really about like the start. I think you really need to put your foot down. And I think it's something that new creators and specifically like smaller creators are afraid to do. And I see it frequently, and they've come to me to talk about it. And when the answer is always like, you need to be really direct, I think a lot of people have a hard time with that. So sometimes I'll try to reframe that as, having a really strong mod team helps too in that essence, because it's not just your community, right? Like when your community grows, it's more than just yours. It belongs to everyone that's there. So like my mods are really good examples. Like if someone comes in and they're starting to get a little too close, or they're skirting a line, my mods will redirect, and it becomes kind of like a funny joke. Like I have a mod who will always be like, so what's everyone having for dinner? And just kind of like redirect the tone of conversation. And if it's something that does need to be addressed more privately, it's really easy for my mods to even reach out and just be like, hey, we keep this chat this way because of this, or like, let's not do that with DD has this boundary, like let's not push it. Then it becomes an issue. And it doesn't always have to fall on you. I know I have anxiety disorder, so sometimes I don't want to be the central line. And then sometimes even having to address something with someone opens up a line of communication between me and them, and I'm not comfortable with that. So I think having that kind of team behind you can really help a lot. Otherwise, I'm very comfortable in the moment of just being like, do not do that. That is weird. That is
I've always
uncomfortable.
liked
That is
how you
gross.
did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember someone came into your channel once and they saw your command about PhD of Final Fantasy, and they're like, oh, you know all this? How about we see how much you know? And you were immediately like, how about no? And just shut it down.
Yeah, I was like,
And
I'm
be
not
like done.
Yeah, I'm not here to do tricks. I'm not doing tricks. I said that's a line I'll throw out a lot. Like I'm not a dog. I don't do tricks because it's not funny to me. Or like I'll gift you a sub if you say this. It's like no.
Oh, that's the one that gets me. That's
I'll
the
just
one that
always
annoys
pull
me.
it
Not the
No.
dancing monkey. So.
Yeah, no. And I think you need to be comfortable with that because your community looks to you too. That makes like Ash said, that makes other people uncomfortable. And if me being very direct and being like, no, when I go into Thor's channel and I see that too, I'm always like, oh yeah, that gives me the confidence to also be like that.
Hell yeah,
You
we
know?
got to be the example, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Always Oh my God. Okay. Jen, what would you like to add?
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. Excellent. I like this. All right. Good segue. So the only thing I want to add to it is that my approach with everything that everyone's already nailed is that I like to lead with kindness, because the assumption I want to come into is that they don't know better. They probably do, but let's just assume they don't and give them that one more benefit of the doubt, because I'm a Taurus and I really, really hardcore align with it that you have my patience until it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, my patience is gone, and a couple of people in this room have known what that is like. It is like, I don't know who you are right now, because I don't ever want to be there. I don't want to be that level of, fed up, or the audacity of the situation. That's usually when you know I'm mad. I'm start talking about audacity. I just start going on and on and on. And so I think it's just really important that I lead with kindness, give them the opportunity to be like, wait, let me reframe this. That's not what I meant it to be. Or if they double down on it, that then confirms, hey, I really tried to meet you halfway, or maybe a little bit further than halfway. You're not understanding, you're not willing. And I'll actually use this as an example. I will cut some of the language short because they were not nice with the language. They were calling a particular game, Mega Man 3, a beta game. And at first it's like, okay, I'm thinking at first they were referring to like, well, they didn't complete the game like they were supposed to. They were rushed, so they had to get it out. So I gave them that benefit of the doubt. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, they're calling this because there's another terminology. If you're not alpha, you're a beta. And so therefore I'm like, okay, I want to give them benefit of the doubt, and start working with it. So I started addressing like, oh, hey, yeah, this game, and start going on the history of it, redirecting it into a positive manner. And then, they're going like, no, a beta. And I'm like, one more last chance here, and then out of no reason, they just randomly started calling the game the P word. And I'm like, that's it. I didn't even wait for my mods. I just stopped speedrunning, and I was like, no, I don't like, there's like, why? What's going on here? What kind of conversation is this? Like, obviously I do Mega Man at least once a week, every single week. So therefore you're going to run into this scenario. You don't want to be here. You're not going to like it here. Okay. And then I warned my mod team, hey, just so you know, this is what happened, because I'm sure I'm almost certain this person's going to say, hey, everyone, I didn't mean what happened. And what happened, that's exactly what they did in their ban request. And so I'm like, all right, mod team, you tell me, this is how I feel about it. I'm going to let you go ahead and give me your feedback. And then everyone's like, nope, they already know what they're doing. If they're asking in this manner, they know. Good enough for me. If my mods aren't comfortable with it, I don't want to put them in that situation either, because they're trying to help me. I don't want them feeling like they're getting, wait, what's good, what's bad, what's good, what's bad. And so therefore talk to them. We're all on the same page. And again, so I try to lead with kindness as often as possible, but when you push me off the ledge, you don't want to see what happens. It's just
Oh my gosh. Wowie zowie.
I know.
First of
Yucky.
all, shout out to the mods, right? Shout out
Oh,
to our
100%.
mods. Where would we be
Yep.
without them, So I'm really glad that you brought that up, and sharing, the unified joint effort between you and your mods having to deal with that kind of problematic behavior and, tone. Also, I love that you brought up leading with kindness, right? Because we can't tell tone and intent through text, right? Not at least initially.
Right.
We can't, because we're just reading words on a screen. There's no like inflection, there's none of that. So we don't know where they're coming from. Thanks, chat. Thanks for putting all the mod love in there, because yeah, we need them. Also want to talk about one point that I forgot to bring up with D, when you were talking about maybe broadcasters who are newer might not want to call out behavior because, like, there may be less opportunity for people to be chatting in their space, and they're afraid of running people off, so to speak. But I think that if you set boundaries and create spaces where people feel comfortable, you will invite more people in. So I
Yeah.
really wanted to call that out and just be like, yo, that's a point that you should definitely never feel afraid to keep your space, safe and the way that you want it to be. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that information. Chat, if you have any questions, feel free to post it right now. We're probably gonna rate out in about 5 minutes or so. But everyone, if you have while chat, maybe putting some questions in the chat, if you have any last pieces of advice for streamers, about keeping your space safe and setting boundaries, what would you give? And I'm going to go with, let's just go in the order, like General Andrews, 8-Bit D, Thor, and then Finn.
The last little bit of advice that I would give is just to realize like how worthy you are of your space and your time. We start getting into thought, like a lot of people mentioned this earlier in the regards of feeling like a performing animal, right? If that was a dog, a monkey, what have you. You're not. You are if you allow yourself to become that. I joke about that, but that's because I choose to joke in that manner about those kinds of things. And so just deep down know that whatever you're trying to accomplish, you live with yourself at the end of the day. When you put your head down on that pillow, you want to know when you're going to bed that you did the best thing for yourself, because if you do that, you're going to be able to give other people the best version of yourself as well. So I think that's really important, even though sometimes it gets away from us. But if you can get back to that place as consistently as possible, awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. D?
Wow. Once again, hard to follow. I think it's important, like we've said it over and over again, right? To be clear and direct to other people, but also be clear and direct to yourself, because some things that other streamers are comfortable with, and you see it around a lot, something Jen is comfortable with joking about or whatnot may not be comfortable for you. And I think a lot of us get in our own heads comparing to others all the time. And it's totally okay to have your own comforts and your own level of comforts, even amongst friends. Like I've had to have the conversation a ton with my community that just because me and this friend talk to each other this way, I'm not comfortable other people talking to me that way. And like it's constant communication. So I think if you're trying to learn and figure that out for yourself, I'm a big list person. I write stuff down all the time. What am I comfortable with a stranger? What's that look like versus my friends? And some people put all that in their rules really detailed. That's fine too. Like just find your comfort in how you best express and communicate for you. And then it's easier for you to communicate it to everybody else, especially if you're starting out. Because as Ash said, even if you're new, I get it. You don't want to lose chatters. You don't want to lose community. But if someone is bothersome to you, they're probably bothersome to other people, which is hurting you in the long run anyway.
Yep. Very well said. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Thor, do you have anything to add? Advice?
Yeah, I guess it would come down to don't feed trolls. And what I mean by that is don't let people control your screen time and the great content that you're putting out there. If you don't want to address something out loud, you can just ban a person and move on. You do not have to give anyone any time. In fact, it's best in a lot of cases, or in a lot of instances, that you just deal with them quickly and then continue what you're doing, because if you give them a spotlight, they will monopolize your stream and they will constantly come back and bring others to do the same. So it's best to set your boundary of who you want in your stream. And lastly, you don't need a reason to ever get rid of anyone who makes you uncomfortable for any reason. A lot of times we get scared as newer content creators saying, oh, I don't want to ban potential viewers and this. But if somebody makes you feel uncomfortable and you ban them and they message you, you don't owe them a reason. Block them and move on, because you're the one in charge of your stream and you need to be comfortable in your space.
Yeah, that's like
that.
that's like something that I've said a lot, and all of you have basically touched on it, but I think this needs to be spelled out for some people because they don't get it. No one has to break an explicit rule in your channel to be banned.
Yes.
Like D always says, it's a vibe check ban. If somebody just felt uncomfortable and was making people uncomfortable and they just got rid of them, that's what you need to do. Because it's best for you and it's best for everyone else there that's not comfortable with them. It doesn't matter if they didn't break a certain rule. Like there's people out there that just want to toe the line constantly and see what they can get away with. And that shit's uncomfortable too. Sorry, Ash.
No, that's okay. I felt that. In my heart. You're right.
So yeah, like just
Yeah.
nip it in the bud if you have to. You don't need to justify your reasons at all. Like Thor said, you don't have to. You don't have to give any reasons. You're just like, I didn't feel comfortable with this, so I handle it.
Yep. Yep. I think if I had to give one little last piece of advice is just be aware of your surroundings, be aware of what you share, and know that anything you share online, Twitch, wherever, is your digital tattoo. You cannot wash it off. It will always be there. You can't tattoo over it either. It's gonna be there. So be aware of that. I don't see any questions in chat, but I do see lots of thank yous, S tier advice, amazing. Like, yes, Sue Moo. Yes, this VOD will be uploaded to YouTube, so don't you worry, it'll be there permanently. But thank you, chat, for being here. Thank you to my guests for being incredible. Like, S tier, amazing content creators, every single one of them. Their links are in the chat right now, or you can click their names in the title, or, please make sure to go and follow them. General Andrews, 8BitD, Thor, Finn. Where can everybody find y'all before you go? Jen, go first. Where can everybody find you?
Besides here on Twitch, you can find me there, /General Andrews, and you can find me on almost every other platform. Same exact thing. If it's General Andrews, you're going to want to see the same exact color scheme and everything, because some people try to take my thing and they don't even have the right icon, because they keep on changing my icon every couple of years because people try to impersonate me for whatever gain they think they get out of it. So General Andrews everywhere. Just pay attention to the icon. Is it the same one? Then you're probably on the right track.
Awesome. D, where can everybody find you?
I am 8BitD on all platforms except for YouTube, where I'm the 8BitD. And yeah, you'll find me 4 times a week live on the twitch.tv.
On the twitch.tv. Thor, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube and Instagram, and I think that's really all I use. You can either find me at Thormangander or on YouTube, the Thormangander. And and I also have TikTok. I sometimes use that.
Awesome.
But hope to see you there.
Yeah. Finn, where can everyone find you?
All platforms Phenomenon. I have 2 YouTubes. One of them's Phenomenon Plays. That's all the gameplay stuff. And then the main one, Phenomenon, is where I do those long form deep dive interviews like I did with Asher.
Yeah.
So those are pretty good if you want more in-depth discussion and topics about what makes people who they are, then you want to check those interviews out, especially Ash's. That was really good.
Hey, all the ones you did are great. And speaking of interviews, I think I found who we're gonna raid. We're gonna go raid Mahoodles,
cool.
who's also doing a stream together talk show right now about sharks. And I just want to say before we go, thank you so much, like from the bottom of my heart, to all of you for joining me. Thank you to chat. Our next streamer strategy show is going to be next week. We're going to be talking about retro gaming and nostalgia. So please go and give all of these wonderful creators a follow. And thank you everyone for being here. And thank you to all of you for your time. I really appreciate it. So until then, we'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ash is an amazing host. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Show love to Ash.
Yeah.
Okay. Y'all are muted for now. I'm not.